Good morning, Rocketeers. I'm going to be sharing a story with you that I found over the weekend while I was kind of reflecting on what's been going on in the country. Um, what was so significant, like why I liked this book, was because it's written by Jacqueline Woodson, who wrote Each Kindness. And I remember I read that to you all at the beginning of the year. I don't know if you'll remember that book, but it was about a young girl who was at the end was reflecting on how she had treated a new student in her class, and she was regretting how she didn't treat her with any kindness. And the lesson was like, with each kindness that you do, it ripples out and it can affect everyone around you. And so this story has another really great lesson to learn. It's called The Other Side. I'm having Malia here just to answer some of the questions that come up as I'm reading the story, because it is really hard to do these without kids in front of me, and I really miss you guys, and so it'll be nice to have somebody here to answer some of my questions as I'm reading. But as a great reader, before I even start reading, I'm going to look at this front cover, and I'm going to think about the title of the book, and I'm going to look at the illustrations. The title of the book is The Other Side. And so when I think of the other side, I think about the other side of what? And I see a fence in the picture. And so I'm thinking, what's on the other side of the fence? I see a girl. I see two girls in the picture. And I think about, like, what is a fence for? What is a fence for?
Um, maybe, 'cause a long time ago, black and white were separated, so maybe there's a fence for the white and black.
To keep them apart?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're going to read and find out if that's the case for this text. When I think about a fence, I think about a barrier. I think about something that's going to keep someone out. So it could be like privacy in your backyard. You might have a fence that's keeping the neighbors from coming into your house, or from people that you don't know coming onto your property. And in this case, I do see it as a bit of a barrier, and it's keeping these two girls apart. So we'll see if what Malia predicted was correct. That summer, the fence that stretched through our town seemed bigger. We lived in a yellow house on one side of it. White people lived on the other. And Mama said, "Don't climb over that fence when you play." She said it wasn't safe. So I think your prediction was correct, in the sense that we see that in the text it's saying that white people lived on one side of the fence and black people lived on the other. And before I even start reading, let me quickly tell you their names. This here is Clover, and this is Annie. I would like to refer to them as their names, and not just what they look like. So this is Clover and Annie. So we see Clover here on her swing. That summer, there was a girl who wore a pink sweater. Each morning, she climbed up the fence and stared over at our side. Sometimes I stared back. She never sat on the fence with anybody. That girl didn't. Once, when we were jumping rope, she asked if she could play, and my friend Sandra said no, without even asking the rest of us. I don't know what I would have said. Maybe yes, maybe no. Why do you think the girl said no? She wouldn't let her play.
Because she knows that she's not supposed to play with the other people on the other side, maybe.
Okay. Here we see a girl and her mother. We see this is Annie and her mother, and then here's Clover and her mother. That summer, everyone and everything on the other side of that fence seemed far away. When I asked my mama why, she said, "Because that's the way things have always been." Sometimes when me and Mama went into town, I saw that girl with her mama. She looked sad sometimes, that girl did. "Don't stare," my mama said. "It's not polite." Why do you think the Annie seems so sad?
Maybe because she really wants to play with the other people on the other side that she haven't met.
Okay.
Or if she wants to play with the other friends on the other side.
Okay. How do you think Clover feels about that girl? Clover is this girl here.
Maybe she feels a little sad too, because she can't play with the other people on the side, Because on the other page, her friend just stepped in and said, "Oh no," and then she was saying, "Oh well, maybe I would say yes, or maybe I would say no."
Mm-hmm.
So maybe she feels sad that she can't play with the other person on the other fence.
Okay. I see here that it says because that's the way things have always been. And I'm going to come back to this at the end of the book. And I want you to reflect on that statement there, because that's the way things have always been. Let's keep reading and then we'll come back to that. It rained a lot that summer. On rainy days, that girl sat on the fence in a raincoat. She let herself get all wet and acted like she didn't even care. Sometimes I saw her dancing around in puddles, splashing and laughing. Mama wouldn't let me go out in the rain. That's why I bought you rainy day toys, my mama said. You stay inside here, where it's warm and safe and dry. But every time it rained, I looked for that girl, and I always found her, somewhere near the fence. Why do you think Annie stayed by the fence?
Maybe she wanted to find the other girl on the other fence, and maybe she wanted to see like the other girl on the other fence, because she said she asked if she wants to play with the other girl, and maybe she wants to see the other girl again.
Okay.
And ask maybe even the friend there.
Oh, okay. So maybe she wants to try to catch her when she's alone so she can ask if she can play.
Maybe.
Mm-hmm. All right, someplace in the middle of the summer, the rain stopped. When I walked outside, the grass was damp, and the sun was already high up in the sky. And I stood there with my hands up in the air. I felt brave that day. I felt free. I got close to that fence, and that girl asked me my name. Clover, I said. My name's Annie, she said. Annie Paul. I live over yonder, she said, by where you see the laundry. That's my blouse hanging on the line. She smiled then. She had a pretty smile. And then I smiled, and we stood there looking at each other smiling. It's nice up on this fence, Annie said. You can see all over. I ran my hand along the fence. I reached up and touched the top of it. A fence like this was made for sitting on, Annie said. She looked at me sideways. My mama says I shouldn't go on the other side, I said. My mama says the same thing, but she never said nothing about sitting on it. Neither did mine, I said. What do you think is special about this picture?
They're making friends a little bit because they're holding hands, and in the other page she said, "What's your name?" And that's sometimes how you start to know people.
Okay, so it looks like they're starting to get to know each other. You also see they're reaching out and they're touching each other. That summer, me and Annie sat together on that fence. And when Sandra and them looked at me funny, I just made believe I didn't care. One day, Sandra and them were jumping rope near the fence, and we asked if we could play. I don't care, Sandra said. And when we jumped, Sandra and me were partners, the way we used to be. Some mornings my mama watched us. I waited for her to tell me to get down from that fence before I broke my neck or something, but she never did. I see you made a new friend, she said one morning. And I nodded and mama smiled. That summer, me and Annie sat on the fence and I watched the whole wide world around us. Why do you think Clover's mother didn't tell her to get down from the fence?
Maybe because she um maybe because she wants them to be friends now that she saw that the girl's nice.
Okay. Maybe she wants them to be friends.
but still not go on the other side. But she can like kind of play with her on the fence, not on the other side of the fence, because maybe they're not allowed to go on the other side of the fence.
Okay. Maybe she's realizing that they're good friends, right?
Yeah.
And maybe she does want some change.
Yeah.
Yeah. When we were too tired to jump anymore, we sat up on the fence, all of us in a long line. Someday somebody's going to come along and knock this old fence down, Annie said. And I nodded. Yeah, I said, someday. What did you think about the book?
I really liked it because it tells people that both white and black can be together, because in the olden days the parents kind of were mean to each other, not really the kids, but those two girls made it up and showed their, like, Clover showed her mom that she wants to be friends with the white, so maybe her mom's telling her, oh, well, I guess that's good to have friends. Like, she already has friends, but, like, friends that, like,
different?
yeah.
I wanted to go back to this page here. Back where they were out shopping. And the mother says, because that's the way things have always been. Why do you think the adults are not necessarily trying to change the way things have always been?
Maybe because she hasn't realized that she didn't, that, like, she wanted that to be her friend, and she saw them, like she didn't already see them, like, trying to, like, be friends, so maybe she's saying, oh, well, well, maybe she's saying, like, oh, well, you're not supposed to be seeing, like, you're not supposed to, like, on the other side of that fence, but then the little girl kind of listened to her mother by not going on the other side. She was just, like, on the fence.
But the mother kind of realized then, though,
Yeah.
that they could really be friends.
Yeah.
Right? And so the mother was allowing for some change, right? What is something that you would like to change about the world, if you could? That's a hard question.
Yeah.
That is a hard question. Maybe in relation to this book. Did you learn anything from the book that maybe you would take into the world?
Like, oh, so, like, something that I wouldn't want to change, is, like, not putting a fence in between white and black, because one of my friends is black and she's one of my best friends, so I don't want to be separated by her. And so if that happened, I would really want to change that, because she's, like, a really good friend from, like, preschool.
Yeah. And you're really lucky that we live where you can be friends with whoever you want, right? But what if you knew that there was still things that Black people couldn't do? What would you want to do to help them?
I would want to fix that. And like if we were to do something that they can't, I would want to fix it so it can be equal.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so it can be equal for white and black. So like if they couldn't like do something, I would want to fix it because then that's not really fair.
Yeah.
And if we're allowed to do it, then it's not a lot of fair because if I was black, I wouldn't like that.
Yeah. And so I think I'm getting a little like emotional. But like hearing from Malia, and I think most of you feel the same way, is that you want to do something. And so I think it's important for you to realize that even though you can play with who you want and you can have your best friend can look however, you know, they look like, there still are inequalities. And there's still things that we need to fight for. And so I think it's important as parents and as students, and you guys are the future, to think about the things that you can still fight for and how you can make things equal for everybody. So I'm going to just leave you with that. I know Mrs. Myers posted a few things for you guys to talk about and think about. And so I want you guys to, you know, leave this and just think about how can you be kind to somebody? How can you change something that's not right about the world? Don't be like, you know, the adults in the world that think that things don't have to change because that's the way they've always been, because that's not true. And I think you guys as young people have the power to change things, and so you should. All right, I love you guys. Bye.